I love talking about rewiring your belief systems because, your beliefs create your choices, and your choices, you create your actions, and your actions create your reality. And so it's interesting with that being so deep in the spirituality, because those deep beliefs that I was indoctrinated into at a young age definitely did not create the reality that I wanted.
In a world moving faster than our minds were designed to handle, mental health is becoming one of the defining challenges of our time. Welcome to Mental Health in a Modern World with holistic health practitioner Greg Schmaus. After overcoming severe anxiety and OCD in his own life, Greg dedicated the past decade to helping others heal through a fully integrated approach to mental health, combining lifestyle coaching, psycho-emotional healing, mindfulness, and archetypal work. Over the years, he's facilitated thousands of sessions, guiding people back to peace, clarity, and a deeper connection with themselves. Each week, Greg shares powerful solo insights, conversations with leading voices in holistic healing, and immersive live coaching sessions that take you inside the healing process itself. New episodes every Friday. Follow the show and start reclaiming sovereignty over your mind in a modern world. Here's Greg.
Kirsty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Greg. I'm so excited to be here. Anytime I get to hang out with you it's just amazing.
Yeah, and we've been wanting to do your archetype wheel for a while now. And so I reached out to you. I'm like, I have the perfect opportunity. And you obviously took me up on it.
Yeah, such a blessing. I'm like, score, look at how the universe provides.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, the archetype wheel is a wheel that contains the 12 astrological houses. And each of those houses correlates with a key area of your life. And so the process that I took Kirsty through was we determined the 12 core archetypes that she's working with in this lifetime. 4 of them being the survival archetypes, which we'll get into, and then 8 other archetypes that vary person to person based on our unique path. And so then I took Kirsty through a process of casting the wheel, which you end up with 1 archetype in each house, which really shines light on some of the key patterns and you could say contracts that we have in some of these key areas of our life. So Kirsty, I'd love to hear what that process was like for you just to start, and then we'll dive into your wheel itself.
Yeah, one thing that I love about this is I've gotten into archetypes, but this was completely different than how I've ever approached archetypes before. And so what was really neat is starting off with all of the deck of the cards and going through each archetype. And as you kind of explained what they are, and you could easily have that mirror reflection and going, oh, that one's heavy in me. And granted, all of them I saw aspects in me, but there were ones where I'm like, not so much. And others that were like, yes, I can just feel it. And so it was really neat starting this process by starting to really hone in and being like, oh yeah, I see where this archetype plays out. And I see where this archetype plays out. I don't want to say the archetypes yet. I don't want to spoil the wheel of which ones were chosen, but it was really neat pulling those. And then what I loved once we got through those 8 and then picking the child archetype was a very interesting, because in my archetype work, I've never done more than just the child archetype. I've never looked at, the wounded, the orphan, the nature, the divine child. I've never looked at any of those. And so that process was really neat going through. And as we laid them out and you intuitively, were like, we set the stage and I picked each one, it was kind of like this smirk just came over my face. And seeing where different ones landed in each house. And I'm really looking forward to seeing today how it goes much deeper than what we've already done. But it was a fantastic experience. And especially for those who are into archetypes and know it. And even for those who are like, don't know it. I even too, you didn't know Michael was like across the room. There were a few archetypes and he goes, yep, that's you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a neat experience for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And so what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to go through Kirsty's wheel. Just like if I were giving a client a reading, we're going to explore Kirsty's wheel. Kirsty's going to get a reading, and then you guys will get a little insight into what it's like to cast your wheel and to go through it like we're going to do today. So, Kirsty, ready to dive into the first house?
I will. And I will preface, we've gone over absolutely nothing together. So I am getting this spoiler just when you guys are getting it too. So it'll be very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready.
So Kirsty has received no reading in terms of her wheel yet. And I have not really looked at it other than when we casted it, because I like to read it intuitively. It feels the most authentic. So I'm basically looking at it with beginner's mind as well. So if we start with house number 1, house number 1 represents your ego and personality. So this really represents who you are.
Mm.
So when Kirsty asks herself, who am I? It's a visionary, right? So the archetype that most correlates with your sense of self and your sense of identity is the visionary archetype, which is your capacity to see the unseen, to be an innovator, and to have like big picture view.
That makes so much sense. Correlating it to numerous aspects in my life.
Yeah, I'd love to hear any initial feedback on that.
Yeah, there's one thing that Michael has always said, and it's very interesting. And for those who don't know, I'm just saying this random guy's name. Michael is my partner. Is he always has said, when you set your mind to something, nothing's going to get in your way of stopping it. And I was like, oh, really? And then I took a reflection of my life and seeing once that vision gets there, or even if someone thinks that there's nothing there, and I'm like, no, we have this and we have this and we have this that we can do in this space, really plays a big thing. And so, a big thing is my past of Ninja Warrior, having the vision of being a high performing athlete and turning that into a reality. Most people, when they look at that, they're like, no, that's not possible, or that can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, why not? And even, becoming, I would say, family with the checks, before we even, like, I met him once, and Michael and I, we were like, oh yeah, we're going to be really good friends with the checks. And literally, we're great friends and even family with the checks. And so I would say things that I pursue in life, and even where we're at now in Canada, and now going for permanent residency and deciding that we wanted to do that, having that vision of doing things in my life that most people look at my life and they go, oh, that's a little crazy. And that's just kind of normal for me. Yeah.
It's funny because when you were sharing about the American Ninja Warrior, look across from your visionary.
Oh, it is the warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the archetypes that are across from each other have a unique relationship. They kind of like feed off of each other and they work with one another. And so the warrior sitting across from the visionary says that there's a relationship between those two archetypes where the visionary sees the vision, and then the warrior is like the strength, courage, discipline to follow it and take action on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the things that I have accomplished in, personal life or personal goals or business goals have really taken a lot of discipline. And I can see how that warrior archetype helped with that foundation of the visionary. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. So if you just have the visionary without the warrior, it just stays a vision. But when you have the visionary and then the warrior taking action, then it becomes a reality.
It's neat.
Very cool. The other thing that I'll share, because whenever I'm looking at the wheel, I'm seeing it multidimensionally. I'm not just looking at the isolated houses. So you see the nature child in the 12th house behind it, right? So the 12th house is your unconscious. And the first house, being the ego personality, is your conscious mind. So imagine like you're driving a car. The conscious mind is in the driver's seat. The unconscious is the backseat driver. And so you have the visionary in the driver's seat and the nature child is the backseat driver.
Mhm.
And so what this tells me is that a lot of your vision and intuition comes through spending time in nature.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm overwhelmed too, I'm just gonna go lay in nature, and things will just completely funnel out and funnel in, or I'll just, it's like people get ideas in the shower. I get ideas when I'm literally just walking in the woods.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So nature is really kind of like the source of clarity for the visionary. And then the last thing I'll say is one of my mentors many years ago, she said every teacher, like say in this space, is on some level either like a teacher of the past, a teacher of the present, or a teacher of the future. And they all have value. For example, if we take our mutual teacher, Paul Check, I see Paul, and hey, Paul, if you're listening to this, love you. I hope you don't mind me sharing this. I see Paul as a teacher of the past. And what that means is a teacher of the past, it's almost like they carry this library of thousands of years of wisdom inside of them. Like when you look into their eyes, it's just like this eternity of wisdom from the past that they're carrying, and they're bringing it into the present to help people remember. Like remember, oh yeah, this is how I'm supposed to eat. This is how I'm supposed to move. This is how I'm supposed to read. This is how I'm supposed to feel. Right? So to me, Paul is very much an incredible teacher of the past, carrying wisdom of thousands of years of history into the present moment to help people remember. Now, if we take a teacher of the present, like an Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, it's a teacher of the present, right? Or Ram Dass is a teacher of the present. I, for myself, identify as a teacher of the present, which is why, for example, like when I'm coaching someone or even on this podcast, I don't prepare anything because I want to speak to what's happening in this moment. The visionary is a teacher of the future, of like, this is what I see, this is what I envision, this is what I anticipate, right? So a visionary is usually someone who is able to see into the future, come back, and then know how to take steps towards that reality. I'm curious how that lands for you.
Yeah, a lot, especially too with I'm glad that you used Paul as an example, because I think that is why me and him do work really well together.
Right.
Because he has all this wisdom and experience in this. And I'm like, we can do this. We can go this way. This is what's missing. This is what we need to do. And this is what's really going to help get this out there, or share this, or people are going to get the best results with this. And I can see that aspect in numerous ways that I've coached people where they're like, I don't understand how to get there. And I'm like, it's easy. We just need to do this. And they're like, oh, I never thought about that, which is very interesting. It's very analytical for me, even though it's very visionary in the future. It's a very analytical for me in how to get there. It's usually intuitive. The vision comes intuitively, and then it goes analytically of how we're going to pursue it. And so I can see that in numerous areas, and even in my own goals. And something as simple as, I wanted to put on more muscle over the past year. And I was like, okay, these are the steps. I see it. This is what it is. This is how it is. And so it's not always just giant life things with the work that I do with Paul, the work that I do with my business or clients. I see it in even very mundane, simple things of reaching my goals with fitness, or reaching my goals with being more centered in myself. And as you shared that too, Michael and I, we recently have gone through a beautiful growth and transformation time in our life, which has really encouraged me to be more centered. And I can see how the visionary, as soon as we were going through it, and I'm like, I'm using these tools to stay centered and through the storm, I'm like, okay, next time we go through this is what I need to do more of. And then we went through another round of it, and I had that plan because I had that visionary with it. And I go, this is all I need to do. This is going to help me stay centered in the chaos and the growth and the challenges. And so I very much see it on a macro scale in my life and on a micro scale in my life, which is very cool. Which is very
beautiful. Beautiful. So if we jump to house 2, so you see house 2 relates to your life values. So the second house relates to your value system. It relates to your material values, like your finances, your resources, the things that you claim ownership of. And it also relates to your sense of how you value yourself, like your self-esteem, your self-worth. And so your own intrinsic sense of value and what I have to offer the world. So what I have and what I have to offer, right? That's where a lot of our sense of value comes from. And so you have the Midas there. And so the Midas is very abundant. It's very creative. The Midas is very much an archetype of manifestation. And so what this tells me is the Midas and that creative spark and that desire to manifest is where you derive value from. Like, I value myself as a creator. Like, the visionary has the vision in the first house, and then the Midas is like, okay, now I'm going to birth that into something of value. Right? So like when you were sharing about how you bring that energy to Paul, that's actually a lot of the Midas too, of like, I see how we could take that idea or that wisdom or that knowledge or that vision and turn it into and create it into this, which is now of real value.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that too, because as you're sharing that, I see both the ways that I've positively done that in my life. And I would say I really feel like over these last 3-4 years, I've really been finding that stride in honing that gift in a way, and that archetype in a way that is like, literally when we just moved, I was like, look at what we manifested. We got everything we asked for, and a lot more in holding the vision. And it's interesting of what you said with the visionary of how the warrior was across from it. The saboteur is across from the Midas, and I can see how reflecting on things in my past where I let or chose a mindset to manifest and focus on more of what I didn't want to then create a reality that I didn't want. And so I can see how those are kind of intertwined, and I can see how stepping into that archetype very positively in my life has changed a lot of things, because that is one thing that I do value. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm such a good manifest.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's a light and shadow side to all the archetypes. So the shadow side also in the second house would be when the Midas only values itself based on what it creates. Where, for example, like if I'm in a phase of rest or a phase of more introspection or a phase of not as much output, like how much does that take a hit on my self-worth? Do I still feel good, worthy esteem and value within myself when I'm resting and taking a day off or a week off versus when I'm pumping out and creating and manifesting in the world?
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's like hitting the nail on the head of a place where I've chosen to do a lot of work, because resting was really hard for me. Validating myself on what I was creating was a big thing. Validating myself on how much money I was making. And it's been a lot of work towards that to allow myself to just sink into the resting. And I have found nature usually helps that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head with that. And it's really neat to see both of these aspects in my life of how they're playing out and how they just intuitively were chosen in this house, but have been there all along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share more about the opposition of the Midas and the Saboteur once we get to the 8th house.
Yeah.
So I'll save that because there's more there. So if we jump to the 3rd house, the 3rd house is the house of communication, the house of perception, and how you perceive and interact with the world. Right? So this is where you have your first survival archetype, which is the prostitute. And the prostitute always relates to our sense of value and integrity. Right? And one of the things that the prostitute often does is the prostitute's often trying to guarantee something.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to guarantee security. I'm trying to guarantee that I'll be liked by this person. So if you look at it in the house of communication, the prostitute could be, for example, like a little bit of like a people pleaser or like a yes girl, right? Like the prostitute in the 3rd house might have a hard time saying no.
You know, it's interesting that when we first did this and I saw that in there, instantly I was thinking things of my childhood. I would say anything I needed to say to be, liked by the group, to prostitute myself to be accepted. And 100%. And it took a while before being confident in who I am and what I bring to the table, and that my people will just find me by being me. And so very much a yes woman, very much I want them to like me. So I'm going to hold back my truth, even if I'm uncomfortable, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. So the key in the 3rd house is how my desire to guarantee something impacts my self-expression. Right. And how like Paul says, your yes has no value until you learn to say no. That's a big lesson for the prostitute in the 3rd house, because the prostitute doesn't value its no.
Yeah.
Right? The prostitute is always like, I'm available for whoever, whenever. And so that's a big theme with the prostitute, is really the valuing of your yeses and nos.
I would also say too, there was a difference in my life of when you say valuing, of actually implementing it. You know what I mean? And not just writing it on the paper of like, no, I won't do this, or no, I won't stand for that type of dynamic or friendship or business partnership or client or whatever, versus actually saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that resonates with you in the 3rd house.
100%. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And again, it's something to, I would say with that, again, there's been a lot of work and around what do my boundaries look like? What authentically feels good for me? Because the thing that would go through my head is, well, if I say this, what are they going to say? Or are they going to be, are they going to be offended? Are they going to think this? Are they going to think that? And it's like, it's okay. And it would be on simple things and, big business things. And it's like, no, it's okay to put a boundary. And so I would say learning from my experiences, and sometimes I've learned them, the lesson numerous times before choosing to be like, oh, this isn't working for me. This doesn't feel good for me anymore. I don't like being the prostitute in this, and radically getting clear on my no and standing firm with it, even when it's uncomfortable. Having that sweaty palm conversation Yeah. It's so funny. These three so far. It's like nailing everything right on the head of aspects of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So if we go to the fourth house relates to home and family life. So that's home and family of origin and current home and family life. So the guide in the fourth house, the first thing would be, I'm curious if you ever find yourself wanting to guide family members.
Oh yeah. When I first started getting into this, I would say it was probably more the negative sense of the guide, and I learned that I'm much more desire of taking that back seat, and they know what I do, so when they want support and help, they'll come to me, and they do now, which is funny, but it is very much a lot of my family will come to me
Yeah. Yeah.
in that.
And the evolution of that, like you said, is kind of like, allowing them to come to you, but not like projecting. It's a lot of the influence of the hermit across from it. Is the hermit kind of like stays in his or her own domain. And yeah, people come to the hermit for guidance, but the hermit doesn't go chasing, doesn't go controlling, and doesn't go trying to micromanage. So that's always the shadow side of the guide, is trying to micromanage people's journey rather than just letting them have their journey, and they'll come to you for guidance when they need it.
Yeah.
So the guide really shows up in home and family life. And there's a few other almost like deeper aspects of it, which is the fourth house represents where home is. And so you could say part of your work as a guide is guiding people back home to themselves.
And literally it's something that I repeat constantly to clients, and even, if a friend's asking me for advice or anything like that, like this is my opinion, but you're gonna know what's best for you.
Yeah.
Like deep down, you're gonna know what's best for you. So even though if I was in this situation, this is how I would handle it. That's coming from my perspective and my experience. Only Greg's gonna know, what to do in this situation. Only you're gonna know what to do in this situation, and it's always coming back to how do you feel? What's going on? You know best.
Right.
And teaching them how to feel that.
Yeah. And the guide being in home, like we said, guiding people back home to themselves. And then the hermit across from it is guiding people inward, not telling people what to do, but guiding people back to their own inner guidance system.
Yeah.
And then the last piece, the fourth house, because it's our home and family of origin, it's where our parents reside. And so part of the work with the guide, which the guide is a lot about intuition, is number one, being a guide for someone. Don't be a parent for them, but be a guide for them. There's a lot of people looking for guidance or looking for a parent to tell them what to do, which Paul talks a lot about that. But also, one of the things that interferes with our inner guidance system is the voices of our mother and father inside of us. So, Carl Jung talks about the process of individuation, which is the process of differentiating from mom and dad so you can access your own inner guidance system. And so that whole process of clearing out the shadow or unconscious imprints of mom and dad allows the guide to really become clearer and clearer and clearer. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. Especially like I said the other day, this came right at that perfect time as I'm diving deeper into the shadow work of the Imago Dei and the mother and the father archetypes and how they play out. So it's very relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So now we'll jump over to the fifth house, which the fifth house relates to your sense of joy, creativity, sexuality. The fifth house goes back to childhood. It's really our house of like play, fun, creative expression. On a deeper level, the fifth house also is where we discover our gifts. And so with the victim in the fifth house, whenever we see the victim in the fifth house, we want to explore any wounds around creative expression.
Oh, 100%.
For example, like I was judged for my artwork or my voice, or like, so there's these wounds or experiences of victimization around our creativity. I'm curious what comes up for you there.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I went to a Catholic school. I grew up in a Catholic school, and so there was a lot of, we do things this way and we stay in these lines and we do this. And I remember even something as simple as we were coloring, and this was in kindergarten, and we were coloring in some pictures and everyone was already moved on and it was time to move on to something else. Okay, it's good enough, go. And hurry up and rush me on to, when I was full on enjoying my creative expression of how I wanted to mix these colors together and how I wanted to do that, or even aspects of singing when I was younger and being very self-conscious about my singing voice because I got made fun of for it. And because my athleticism got praised and my creativity got, squashed and squandered on. And even more so with that, I was told that I had a learning disability when I was younger, when I don't really think I had a learning disability. I just think I liked to do things differently and create creatively. And, my mom said, she goes, like, if you were like just goofing off and like looking in the mirror and like doing like, weird things, she's like, you had no problem with your spelling. And so because I was told we need to follow this way, we need to be in this direction, and my athleticism was praised, I 100% shut a lot of my creativity down. A lot of it down. And even as I've become an adult and, started getting into mandalas, my first mandala that I made, it was like all this judgment and all the suppression was coming out. And so 100%, 100%.
Yeah, so a lot of the victim in the fifth house is healing the inner critic and the residue of the outer critics that relate to our creativity. And that begins to then open up kind of like this well of inner gifts that are then allowed to be expressed. So whenever we see survival archetypes in these houses, that's where the most amount of power and energy is bound up. And so it's where the most energy potential lies to be released, right? So that fifth house with the creativity and the victim there is definitely a key one where there's more and more that can be uncovered and reclaimed.
100%. And, it's interesting as you're talking about, even when I look at what I do a lot of now, I get to be creative.
Yeah.
With a lot of my work, which is very interesting. And very interesting.
Beautiful. So if we go to house 6, and also I just want to mention that the 12 houses correlate with the 12 months. So we're in the 6th house this month because we're in June. And so, at least when we're filming and recording this. And so the 6th house relates to work and health. So the 6th house relates to our job, occupation, so outer work, sense of purpose, but also inner work. And it also relates to all aspects of our health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And so you have the seeker in the 6th house. And so work and health are the two areas where the seeker is always pursuing, a deeper layer, greater truth. The seeker in the 6th house, if we start with your work, what it says to me is it's a very different energy than, for example, there's someone who spent 50, 60, 70 years working the same job in the same office, 9 to 5, same routine for decades upon decades. The seeker would be miserable in that.
I was talking about that. That sounds horrible.
Yeah. The seeker is always pursuing that next level of depth or that next iteration of my work. And so the The seekers, it's, how Paul talks about like the horizon is always, you take one step towards it, it takes one step away from you. So in your work, there's always going to be that seeker that's always, okay, what's the next iteration? What's the next version? What's the next, which can be a blessing and a curse. The blessing is constant evolution. The curse is it never feels like it's enough.
Yeah.
And so there's a little internal wrestling match with that challenge related to your work. I'm curious how that lands.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I've come to terms with it's how far do I want to take it? There's always going to be more to do. And in my early part of my career, I don't think I understood this about myself or about the world. I thought there was like this end goal in a way, and then I reach it, and then that's it, and we just ride that. And everything that you said, that would make me miserable. But then when I realized there wasn't, and there's so much to learn, I then fell into the trap of overdoing and constantly going, and then almost falling into well, shit, do I know anything? Do I know anything? And it's really come to this balance out of, I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of wisdom in a lot of areas. And at the same time, there's so much more to experience. And so I've gotten really familiar or really clear with what is a healthy balance between doing, the seeking, the going, and the learning and the experiencing versus the resting. And because that resting has always been a challenge for me in the past, that muscle has grown stronger over the years. I can very much feel when I'm teetering too much. And so that for sure has been a big pull in my life. But I'm always like, it's how far do I want to take this today? There's always tomorrow. How far do I want to take this? There's always going to be more to do. There's always going to be more to see, and it's okay to take my time. And then that's also when I remind myself that there's not that destination. It's about enjoying the journey. Literally, the process is the journey, and it's having conversations with myself like, okay, we need a break, and that's okay that we're not learning anything or going out and really pushing. It's okay that we're just integrating. Yeah. That's probably the correct word of how powerful integrating the wisdom and the experiences I've gotten from the seeker. Yeah. So huge pull in my life. Huge pull. Yeah. And I will say when it wasn't balanced, that's when I found myself in burnout.
And so because the sixth house governs health, what this says is health challenges will be a result of the seeker being out of balance.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's what happened when I burned out.
Yeah.
And I can see when I'm teetering that line because I do feel it in my body, and I feel it in different areas or symptoms, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing too much. And don't get me wrong, there's times in life, where things are just stressful and things are just going, and this has to play out. But when I remind myself that there is this end goal, like this push, the seeker is ending soon. When it's done, I have to remind myself that I can downshift, but that downshift can sometimes be challenging. And it will show up in my health 100%.
Yeah. And when that does show up, the archetype across from it brings you back into balance, the nature child, right? Because nature is the law of balance.
And that's literally how I downshift. Even in the winter time, one of my favorite things is to like bundle up and just lay out in the cold, because that yin, that cold to that yang, that doing very much balances out. And it's really neat too, because I've always known nature was really healing for me, but I'm now seeing why nature outside of the beautiful benefits of nature, but like how deep that archetype is.
Yeah. What's beautiful about the wheel is there's things that but maybe you don't know why. And then the archetype wheel is like, oh, that makes sense. Now I understand why blank. And so that word that you used, integration, is really the most important thing for the seeker in the sixth house. Is the seeker is the pursuit, and then the pursuit also has to be matched with integration. And so I'm so glad that you use that word, because it's so important for the sixth house there.
I've learned from burnout,
Yeah.
from overdoing it.
Yeah. Awesome. So now we go to house 7. So house 7 is one-on-one relationships.
Mm.
And so the warrior in the 7th house, the warrior is obviously a very strong archetype. It's a lot about strength and protection, knowing what you stand for, knowing what you're willing to live and die for. And so it's very interesting actually having the warrior show up in one-on-one relationships. And so that can show up as obviously light and shadow. The light side is really standing up for and protecting the relationships that are closest to you and most valuable to you. Like being a protector of the relationships that really mean the most to you. And the commitment of the warrior is quite significant in the 7th house. The challenge that the warrior can run into in the 7th house is number 1, could unconsciously go to battle sometimes, or number 2, the warrior can be loyal to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
I fight for something that I really just need to surrender. Or I stay in something longer than its expiration date, or I'm not willing to just let it go.
Yeah.
I keep fighting for it.
I see that trend numerous times in romantic relationships.
Okay.
Numerous times, that the shadow side of it. And one thing, when it gets flipped on the light side, it's like, I'll be there when things hit the fan. We can make it through challenging times. And so when relationships hit that turmoil, and I can see it in friendships too, but I can really see it when you're in partnership with people. You get that mirror straight up, but I can see it in numerous of my relationships. Is like, well, come on, we can work through this. This is no big deal. And I'm usually the one that's, hey, let's do this. We got this. What's interesting is I always thought that had to do more with an attachment style. And I've done a lot of work on my attachment styles with it. But the way that you're talking about the warrior in that from a shadow side, I'm like, oh my goodness, yes. I've done that numerous times when it's time to just let it go. I don't put the sword down. I'm like, no, like, we got this.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm good. Like, why? But again, like I said, that's been way on the positive side of too, because those who are in my inner circle, and when I've gotten really clear with like, oh, this is the boundary that I need to have around the friendships or the romantic relationships, because every relationship hits some sort of turmoil. Like when things hit the fan or things get chaotic, like I'm there in the foxhole with you. Like I got you. Like I got you. And I love that aspect. I love that aspect.
Yeah. And so the big thing with the warrior is also being very conscious of your alliances and make sure that you're willing to live and die for the person that you're in the foxhole with, and make sure that you're choosing a person that's willing to do the same.
And that's been the learning and growth opportunities of the past. But I can see the prostitute, it's very interesting because that's when the prostitute would come in. It's not really across from it, but that's when the prostitute would come in.
Yeah.
To still prostitute myself to be in the foxhole with them when they just need to be they need to be in another one.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, is a lot of those, the shadow side too, is when I'm still ready to battle and be loyal for it. I've gotten numerous times, and even on the positive side, numerous times that I can be very intense in relationships. And I think that makes sense because the warrior is ready to go and is ready to fight and is ready to be there.
Yeah, the warrior definitely has an intensity. And so in one-on-one relationships, you can see where that shows up.
100%. This is, I have to say, dude, this is crazy of how like on point these aspects are to different parts of my life so far. Like it's literally nailing it across the board of archetypes that I hold and have held.
Yeah.
Deeply.
Well, you chose it, so.
Yes.
So the eighth house is other people's resources. So you see the eighth house sits across from the second house. So the second house is your resources,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially what you have and what you have to offer others. And then the eighth house would be what other people have to offer you,
Mm.
what you might want or need from others. And so the Saboteur in the eighth house, what that says to me is, well, it could say a couple of things. The first would be challenges with receiving, right? Because the eighth house is other people's money, power, authority, resources that you might want or need from them. So the Saboteur might, for example, have a hard time asking for help
Mhm.
of like, hey, I need a favor, or could you help me out with this? And it's interesting because it sits next to the warrior. So sometimes the warrior tries to do everything
Mhm.
himself or herself. And then the Saboteur in the eighth house of other people's resources, I have a hard time asking for help.
Oh, yeah. And that felt like such a wound too, when I did have to ask for help of, well, why can't you just figure it out on your own? Like, why do you know, and that one took a long time too. And it was actually Paul telling the story of him trying to do it all alone. And then the bee spirit came to him saying, bees don't make honey alone. And me really stepping back. And even when I look at things that I think that I'm doing by myself, I'm not really doing by myself. And really, which is interesting, the ninth one we're getting into, but really flipping that mindset of it's not weak asking for help when I need help. It's actually a really strong quality to say, hey, I need your support here. Can you help me here? That one's taken a while, and I definitely can see where more work on it, continued work on it, can unlock more, like what you were talking about in the victim, where it holds the most energy potential.
Yeah.
I definitely see where more can be unlocked asking for help.
Yeah. And so the big theme in the eighth house is healing the Saboteur is a lot about opening myself up to receiving, opening myself up to asking for a helping hand, being willing to receive what others have to offer me rather than always what I have to offer them.
I'm laughing because also too, another thing Paul would tell me, and Paul, like when he talks, he can talk really, really close. Like when he has something really impactful to tell you, is he would tell me, you don't have to do it all on your own. You don't have to lift it all on your own. He's like, you can let the universe do it. And so even not just with other people, even the universe of being like, it's okay. Like let the universe work its magic. It's okay. And that's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Right
Beautiful.
on.
Beautiful. So if we go to house 9, you have the Liberator. House 9 is the house of spirituality. It's the house of your relationship with God, spirit, religion. And so the Liberator is all about freeing yourself on a spiritual level. So for example, you mentioned being born and raised in a Catholic upbringing. So the Liberator is part of your archetypal journey of freeing yourself from some of the maybe imposed beliefs, some of the restrictions that maybe organized religion felt like it was placed upon you.
Oh,
And so the Liberator is breaking free from all of the religious or spiritual shackles that you may have felt were, attached to you for times in the past.
yeah. And again, the relevancy, the timing of this, as I've been digging deeper into those beliefs, and just 2-3 weeks ago, just unlocking a lot of those that I realized I was still carrying with me, even on an unconscious level, of specific beliefs that was right or wrong and how I should be living my life, and really looking at those and being like, no, that doesn't serve me anymore. And so it's interesting looking at the Liberator in this house. With having that upbringing, I have such great beliefs to sit through and see what else what else I want to believe and how I want to believe. And it's interesting too, because that's a passion of when I get in conversations with people and when I talk with clients or anyone. I love talking about rewiring your belief systems because, your beliefs create your choices, and your choices, you create your actions, and your actions create your reality. And so like I get so jazzed about that. And so it's interesting with that being so deep in the spirituality, because those deep beliefs that I was indoctrinated into at a young age
Right.
definitely did not create the reality
Right.
that I wanted. Yeah.
And so one thing I'll add, because we do have a light and shadow side, the light side of the Liberator in the ninth house is freeing yourself from, you could say, like we said, the shackles of organized religion, maybe the limitations of it or the restrictions of it or the imposed beliefs around it. But then also making sure that the Liberator doesn't swing to the other extreme where it's just like floating free and not grounded or anchored in anything. That's what I would see as one of the shadow sides of like New Age spirituality, is there's a swinging to the opposite of extreme of, instead of being in an organized religion, now they're not grounded in anything. There is something beautiful to a tradition or a discipline or something that you really ground and root yourself into. And so sometimes the Liberator can be resistant to that because of how it's felt imprisoned in the past. So it's finding the balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I can see how when I first started, I'll put in quotes, the spiritual journey, because it's been the whole time, but when it initially happened, is I can see where that definitely just the pendulum swung massively to the other side. And I would say these last couple of years, and again, working so closely with Paul, living with them for 2.5 years, like that really helped tame the pendulum out from not swinging so far. And I would say when I first met them in person and started working with them in person, it was on that shadow side of the Liberator. And it really helped ground me out for sure.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so now we go to your highest potential.
Yay.
The Hermit. And so the highest potential is the Hermit. A couple things. It obviously highlights the importance of solitude, right? The importance of really spending time with yourself, your own time, your own space, as a way of really deeply coming to know yourself. The highest potential is self-mastery with the Hermit. So the highest potential is always an inward journey. It's not an outward pursuit. And so the Hermit really highlights that the pursuit of the highest potential is really through inner mastery. I think there's one of the verses in the Tao Te Ching. It's something like, to know others is intelligence, to know yourself is wisdom, to master others is strength, to master yourself is power. And that's, to me, like the verse of the Hermit in the highest potential. I think it's verse 33, if I'm not mistaken. So how does that land for you?
Well, and I was talking with you about this the other days. I love my alone time. I love being with people, but I love my alone time. I love just, even if it's doing absolutely nothing, it fuels me, it recharges me. And when Michael and I were living in an RV, it was so hard to feel like I could really get that deep hermit time that I craved, because sometimes I don't want to leave the house when I hermit. Sometimes I just want to like hermit around the house, but the house wasn't that big. Or even going outside. And so I would say that this is something in my younger years I didn't really know about myself and I didn't feed into. And when I went through my quarter life crisis and really started spending time with myself and learning to love aspects of myself that I really hated, I'm like, I don't understand how people don't like spending
Yeah.
time alone. And it really became this aspect of it's so needed in my
Yeah.
world, because without it, I am just out of balance
Yeah.
massively.
Yeah. And what's beautiful is the hermit sits across from the guide. And, as we know in the tarot, the hermit is a guide, right? Because the hermit climbs up the mountain, spends time in isolation, does its inner work, and it comes back down holding the lantern as a guide for
Yeah.
others. And so the guide and the hermit across from each other are a really strong opposition because they very much are like two sides of one coin. And the hermit being in the highest potential across from the guide, what it also says is as you get closer to your highest potential, whatever that looks like, you begin to guide people without having to say anything. Like Paul says, like the greatest teacher is the silent teacher.
I love that.
So that's the hermit in your highest potential.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that a lot.
Me too. So now we go to house 11. So the 11th house relates to community. It relates to group relationships, tribe. So how Paul has the I, we, all.
Mhm.
Think of the first house as I, the 7th house as we, and the 11th house as all.
Mhm.
So 3 or more, you're in the 11th house. And so you have the lover there. And so the lover in the 11th house very much thrives on community, loves connection to tribe. Like the heart opens when you enter that relationship at an all level. Maybe even more so than on a we level.
Mm. Yeah, I think it depends what the tank is needing fuel from, but
Yeah,
I can
especially with the hermit next to it.
correct. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
can tell though. It's interesting you say that because I thought it was just the age I was in. You know how 1 to 7 is root chakra. 8 to 14 is sacral chakra. I'm in the 5th chakra, and so I was kind of like, oh, maybe that's just me wanting to voice and connect with my tribe and my community, because that has been something heavily since 2021 that I've been like, oh, like tribe that is actually aligned with me being my authentic self. And it does, like, when there's workshops, when there's actually a group event that I feel aligned with, I just come home and I'm like jazzed and I'm buzzed. Like, we have a few people we're meeting with this summer and having community. Like, I'm jazzed about that. Like, it does 100% fuel me. And like I said, it fuels me in a different way than the we fuels me, and a different way than the I fuels me. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. But once I'm
Yeah.
done, I'm ready to hermit.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's very
too much
interesting.
hermit, and I crave that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a great balance. And what's really interesting is having the warrior energy in the we relationships and the lover energy in the all relationships. Because the warrior and the lover are also like two polarities. And so it's very interesting that you have these very different energies that show up at the we level versus at the all level.
What would be the shadow side of the lover and the all?
The shadow side of the lover at the all, well, the lover can become almost like a little bit like the prostitute. So the lover unconsciously can be a little bit of a yes person, a people pleaser, maybe some of those attachment wounds. So the lover and the prostitute could be like almost like the shadow expression of the lover.
I can 100% see that. And I will say too, there's many times in the past when group events have gone on and I would get so much FOMO, even if I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And over the years of doing the inner work and it might come up, but it's like, do you really want to be there right now? And it's like, no. Okay, so what would it feel like if you were there? I'm like, you would just want to go home. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so you're home right now, so let's enjoy that. And when you do want to go out and you do want to connect with your community, guess what? It's going to be great because you authentically you want to be there.
Yeah.
So I 100% feel that for sure.
Yeah. And so if we now finish off with your 12th house, we have the nature child. Now, the 12th house governs your unconscious and it also governs intuition. So, one of the things that this says is that the nature child is really your greatest access to intuition. So, if you have a question or you need guidance on something, it's, I need to go out in nature. I need to go for a walk in the woods. I need to sit under a tree. I need to go for a hike. And that's where the downloads, so to speak, come through nature.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And we talked about it. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times, like 100%, 100, but it's all right on and exactly with how I function and how I work. And even throughout my day, because I do so much on the computer, that I'll just go sit outside. I'll just go take a walk. I'll eat my lunch outside. I literally do as much outside as I possibly can. And like we said earlier, this just makes so much sense of why and why it feels so centering. And also, too, why so many ideas or intuitive feelings come to me, or why I love speaking with animals and getting messages from animals and just like clearing myself and seeing if they have anything to say to me. And it's become so normal that I forget when I'm talking with other people. I'm like, oh, you don't talk to the animal? You didn't see what the spider had to say for you? It just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Of why that's there. And my question is, now that I have this, what do I do? What do I do with all this? Like, now that I have all this in my awareness, what do I do?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing is I'll send you a PDF that outlines the houses. It has journaling questions. Like if you have this archetype in this house, like here's some further exploration. So I'll send that over to you separately. But what I would recommend doing is, number one, work with one archetype each month. So the archetype that you're in each month, just work with that. So going by the 12 houses and the 12 months, like June right now, we're in the 6th house. So spend this month really exploring and working with the seeker. Next month, focus more on the warrior. The following month. So each year you kind of spend 1 month working with each archetype. The other thing is, whenever you have a challenge in your life, ask yourself, what house is this challenge in? So if you're having a financial challenge, maybe go to the 2nd house. If you're having a challenge at home, go to the 4th house. If you're having a challenge at work, you go to the 6th house. If you're having a challenge, in a one-on-one relationship, go to the 7th house and see what archetype is there. And you work with that archetype based on the challenge that you're facing and the house that's in. So it becomes almost like a blueprint, or a roadmap.
A guide.
A guide.
A guide.
Now, I would definitely spend some time focusing on the survival archetypes in those houses, because the survival archetypes are where a lot of our core wounds are, a lot of our unconscious imprints and contracts are. And obviously, this is a lot of the work that I do in my coaching, where I would take the wheel and then do a lot of inner work with someone based on the roadmap or the blueprints. But if you're working with it yourself, you have a lot of tools given your work with Paul and everything. So you know how to work with archetypes, but work with one a month based on the month that we're in. Work with the archetypes based on the challenges that you're having in your life. So you go to that house and work there, and then focus a little bit on the survival archetypes, because that's where the most amount of opportunity is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. Now, I know I'm going to have some people in my life that want to go do this, can they do just the wheel with you, or is
Yeah.
it normally wheel and then okay? Because I have some people that I think are gonna dig this for sure.
Yeah. I'll have the link in the show notes, but it's healing40.com/wheel.
Cool.
Very simple. And I used to do it in a group. I have that on hold right now, but I am doing one-on-one archetype wheels. So people are more than welcome to reach out to me.
And I have to say, like, this is the first time I've done this. I had no ideas of what you were gonna say, and like I said, I think I said 100%, like literally 30 times in this thing because it was so spot on with aspects of my life and shining light on areas of things in my past and how I've acted in certain areas. And also, too, I can see how beneficial this is going forward. I'm like looking down at my map that I have down here of how beneficial this is moving forward now, knowing these aspects and working with them and getting to know them deeper level. So
it's like a curriculum.
yes.
You know how like we say Earth is a school where we as souls come to learn? I see the wheel as like the curriculum that we put into place like for this incarnation.
Yeah.
And so it's very much like the curriculum that, we signed up for.
Yeah.
And it kind of lays it out for you.
Yeah. And not only that, some of these archetypes are ones that I haven't explored. The Hermit, I'm pretty familiar with. But like when we were doing this, I'm like, what is a Midas? I'm like, what is a Midas? And it's something that's so heavy in my life and prevalent in my life. And so I'm looking forward to diving into these more and working with them and utilizing them. So I just have to say, anyone who wants to do this, do it. I'm like jazzed about it for sure.
Well, Kirsty, thank you so much for being a guinea pig and coming on and being willing to just open yourself up in this way. Because I know some of this can be quite vulnerable for people to make themselves like this available. So thank you for that.
Thank you for choosing me as your guinea pig.
Would you like to share anything or direct people anywhere in terms of your work or anything that you're up to? I just want to give you an opportunity for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have a few things in the works, nothing out right now, just because I'm in a lot of good transition in life. But if you do want to connect and you do want to get on any sort of wait list of what I might have going, or you just want to follow me, the best way is Instagram, which is kirsty.pratt.coaching, which is my first last name, coaching. And just reaching out on there and connecting from there and stuff like that. Like I told you, I'm in this interesting transition in life. And so it sounds like I need to go lean into that 12th house and go spend some time in nature and see what drops in. But if you're feeling the call to just connect and see what's up, reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Kirsty, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, friend. And I hope to see you in person very soon.
Absolutely.